What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Dipped in Tone. I'm Rhett.
I'm Zach.
All right, so we've got something really fun today. Our second guest ever, another heavy hitter, you could say.
Man,
I mean, we're two
Real
for two
heavy
on
hitter.
guests. Yeah,
this one's really exciting for me. It's very exciting for me.
yeah. It's exciting for me too. It's just I think for different reasons than you, but still equally as excited. We've got one Paul Reed Smith on the show. Perhaps you know him. He builds guitars, a couple amplifiers, a few pedals now.
Yeah, you know it's funny. Like of all the heads of guitar companies, I mean, there's people that we know,
Yeah,
right?
But
I can't really think of another person like Paul that is still so much in the forefront of his own business.
yeah,
And like when I think about what I want to do with Mythos and how I want to be perceived and like how much I want to work moving forward, it mirrors both Josh Scott and Paul Reed Smith. And I just respect him so much for what he does still.
yeah. Those are two really solid people to look towards. Both have built incredibly successful companies that, well, at least in my experience with JHS, have built really great like work cultures around. Like when I've been to Kansas, and you've been to JHS in Kansas City, like everyone there seems to be really happy with their jobs and see it just, and I think that all comes from the top. Now I haven't been to PRS. Now, obviously there's one thing that if you want to model yourself and your business after both those guys, you need to change the name Mythos, and it needs to be a 3-letter, needs to be your initials. So
it could be my initials sound like a radio station though, so it's not very good.
So Z what B?
No. WRZB.
Oh,
WRZ.
Welcome to WRZB Chicago. This is your local on the 8s.
See?
We got traffic, traffic news coming up.
See, that's exactly what it sounds like. It doesn't
That
sound
is
like
exactly
a pedal
what it
brand.
sounds like.
So
you know, if it didn't start with, yeah, well, okay, there you go. So
if
don't
it didn't
do
start
that.
with W,
if it didn't start with W, it'd be better. But
RZB, no, that's dumb. That's dumb. So
sounds like a motorcycle.
How's things going? It does.
Things are good.
Sounds like a
It sounds like a scooter, like a 50cc scooter.
Yamaha model.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
exactly.
RZB.
That you'd see on Craigslist.
The Razor bike.
Yeah. Sick. Good monster stickers all over it and stuff.
Yeah, 45cc of.
Over your tires
Anyway.
flat. Anyways. What's new? Well, just same old same. Just working, making videos. Finally bought a car. So that saga has ended. Did end up buying a truck, but let me tell you something. But trying to buy a car in this, we've talked about it at ad nauseum, and God, it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
But
Well.
yeah, finally
That's
glad
okay.
that's over. What's new with you?
Oh man, did I mention? I don't know if I did in the last, because this is the first episode. It looks like the same room, but this is indeed the new space.
Hey.
And I don't know if I mentioned in the last podcast. I don't think it happened yet. I tried to lift a shelf, and my left wrist, which is already broken,
Right.
I was trying to pick up some shelving, and I turned my hand to like adjust something, and then this whole side of my arm just went pop, an audible just like, and immense pain. That was like 2 weeks ago, and it still hurts. So
Cool.
it's been really fun, like picking up my child and trying to just exist in the world. It doesn't make sense. Like certain things don't hurt, and then I'll get my towel off the rack to take a shower, and it's like, my wrist. So
You know what you should probably do?
that's, I know.
You
I
should
gotta
probably
make
just
an appointment.
No. Just ignore
I'll
it.
just chop it off.
No, just ignore it. And
okay.
it'll probably go away.
Yeah. Well, all that to say, and we talked about this. All of this has caused me to realize how much I hate my wrist because of the lack of rotation. So I think I want to try and get it fixed, but that's going to require cutting both bones in my wrist and then
Gluing? Probably not glue.
super gluing them back together.
I don't know if they're not going to use like a CA glue.
Oh yeah, just a little
You
kicker
can be
on
like
it.
Adam Savage and they're like spraying the accelerator on there.
Fine. But that But we're all in the new spot. Things are moving along at a pace, and there's much more to come. Many more announcements later.
I feel like we should make Adam Savage references part of our drinking game if they're not already.
Oh, that's a good thing
he
to add.
Tends to come up, him and or Tested comes up on almost every episode we do.
Well, yeah, because it's the greatest. I mean, no offense, but the greatest YouTube channel.
No, none taken. Are
there.
you kidding me? Of course. That's Adam Savage of ILM and Mythbusters fame. Come on. Can't hold a candle to that.
Well,
so speaking of the drinking game, if you wanna be a part of the episodes while we're filming them and have early access to the episodes, you can join our Patreon, linked down below. We greatly appreciate the support. It goes into helping us produce this show more consistently now. So yeah, there's new tiers, there's new details, there's a whole new Discord server that is for patrons only. So yeah, if you're interested, check that out. And we would also like to go ahead and thank the sponsor of today's video, which is StewMac.
Yes. So you got a package recently from StewMac for something
I got
unrelated.
a package from StewMac. Yeah.
But what did you get? You got some stuff.
I thought it was in here. I was going to grab it. It's not in here. I got a whole bunch of pickups from StewMac a couple weeks ago. So many pickups, in fact, I don't know that I have enough guitars that are eligible to have pickups swapped into them. And there's some interesting stuff, too. There's like some wide range stuff. There's you know, it's not just single coils and humbuckers they've got going on. So
well,
you'll be seeing that stuff on my channel and here on the podcast in the near future.
Well, I knew that you got that box, and I went to their website to check out because I knew that they used to call them the Golden Age pickups, and they make all the like replica style pickups and stuff. But they also carry Seymour Duncan, Fender, Gibson, EMG, TV Jones, Fishman. It's crazy. It's one of those things like, oh, surely they won't have that. StewMac has it. So if you're listening to the podcast and you need any of those things, go to stewmac.com/dippedintone and you can get 10% off your entire order.
And remember, if you need a Go Bar deck, you could go get you a Go Bar deck off of StewMac for gluing. What is that even for? I think it's for like gluing tops or something, right?
Oh, I don't know.
What is a Go Bar deck? I know you like put something on it, and then there's like you use rod. It's like to hold tension on something for.
Oh yeah,
to glue it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's for
pretty
like tops.
ingenious solution. Yeah, it's for like
doing
bracing on. Yeah, okay. So there you go. When you're bracing your guitar tops, and you need to get you a Go Bar deck, go to StewMac. And if you follow the link in the description box down below, you can get 10% off of your order. And thank you, StewMac, for sponsoring today's episode of Dipped in Tone. Now, because we've got a very special guest, we did something that we've actually never done before, which is had the guest dip a rig. So with that in mind, we're not going to dip the rig now. We're going to flip some things up. We're going to do Shill of the Week now, and then jump into the interview with Paul, where we start with dipping the rig. And boy, is it a jolly mint.
Yes, it's great.
So do you have a Shill?
I do. Do you have yours handy? I'm going to have to.
I mean, I do.
Mine.
Yeah.
Okay, you go ahead.
Yours. Well, then. But if
I'm
going to talk about it, I want you to like sit here and be here while I'm talking. I don't want to talk to myself.
I have people. Someone's going to bring it to me. You just go ahead.
I have people. Jesus. You move into a new building, and then all of a sudden, it's like gone to his head. The square footage, the higher rent, is freaking out, gone to your head. All right, so
that's right.
My Shill of the Week, DS1W.
Oh,
you played this one yet?
I haven't, but I have. Wait, let's see. Look at it. Bam. Old.
Quite a different orange, or is that our cameras? Look at the.
It's probably our cameras, but they might be different. Mine's
an
old Japanese one.
Yeah, so I just did a video that actually Josh from JHS helped me out with on the DS1 sound. Here's the deal. I've been sleeping on the DS1. I overlooked it, and it's was pretty wrong good. In doing so. It's more than pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
The regular just DS1. It doesn't matter what version. Josh sent me 5 of them. Every version, because of course he did, and a bunch of memorabilia. So I played every version, including the Waza, and they are shockingly similar. There's very little, if no, difference between them.
Yeah.
The Wazacraft does have the custom switch though, which is cool, so it can kind of revoice and give you some more options. But the thing is, like I said this in my video, the first time I ever played a DS1, I was pretty new to pedals, didn't really know what I was looking for or what it was supposed to do. And I dialed in just kind of a really half-assed, gross sort of sound and then thought like, oh, that pedal sucks. And then just never really gave it much thought after that. But boy, was I wrong. Now, I think a lot of people overlook the DS1, which is weird to say because they've sold over 1 million of them. So it's like everybody at some point has had a DS1, but it's not talked about especially on our show. Like, we always tend to go for the more expensive stuff, the more boutique stuff, the more exclusive stuff, because the DS1, I think it retails for like $60 or $70 new. So I think it kind of...
yeah. I mean, they used to be like 30 or like 40 or $50 new. They were nothing.
Dude, it's
for a long time.
So good. It is, as far as distortion pedals and dirt pedals go, it's one of the most versatile distortions or dirt pedals you can own. That EQ control is so active and it does so much throughout its sweep. It's not just changing the top end or the low end. It's shifting mid-range around. It's completely shifting the EQ curve. It's a hugely versatile pedal. And if you have not thought about a DS1 or you think, well, it's too much gain or whatever, it's not. You should check one out. I'm a huge fan.
Well, you know what I think the problem is with people like me when I had one when I was, 16 or whatever. Why you think, oh, that sounds like crap. You play it into a clean amp. But this... like you did, you put it into through the Imperial.
Yep.
And you put it through something that's pushed. These things shine. They sound good.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like into a clean amp, they're pretty bright and like a little strident. But yeah, they can.
And the EQ is quite sensitive. So it can be, it's not hard to dial in, but it's because there's such a wide sweep in the EQ curve, it can be a little bit picky. I agree. Clean amps are probably not what I would go for initially, but you have an amp that's on the edge of breakup, just a little bit of hair. It's not transparent. It's not going to maintain like your guitar and your amp sound. That's not what it's supposed to do, but boy, does it sound good. And it's really useful. In my video, I called out Mark Spear from Krungben because he has one on his board that's always on, and the tone and the distortion are all the way down and the level is all the way up. So he's using it as this like dark kind of preamp boost thing, and then just riding his guitar his Strat's volume knob. And if you never heard
must be bright.
What's a Silverface Deluxe? At least it was in the Premier Guitar Rig Rundown a few years ago. Deluxe reverb.
That makes sense.
Pretty straight ahead, and it sounds excellent. So
cool.
There you go.
Well, hey, can someone bring me my Shill, please?
Great. Excuse me. So you should snap at them. Excuse me, McKinley. Yes. Summon the Shill, please. There's nothing more disrespectful than snapping at somebody.
I bet they're all pooping.
Jesus Christ.
Hello, my Shill, please.
I saw that one time at a restaurant. I literally witnessed someone snap at their server, and I thought I was going to come out of the chair. And
I found it. Here it is.
Hey. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's a man.
Yeah. What's up?
It's
a man named Matthew.
Do I get a seat?
Yeah, bring it. Scoot you a chair over here.
I'll scoot a chair over. Oh, God.
This is my Shill of the week.
I was not expecting this at all.
My whole life. So excited to be here on the show.
So, for those that don't know, I hired Matthew to work with us at Mythos, and he's running the show.
So you can just do this stuff now.
That's all I have to do.
That's all he wants to do.
Hey, can I tell you something, Zach? In the years that I've known you, this is the smartest thing that you've ever done.
He says this is the smartest thing I've ever done.
I think so too.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've talked to him not on Destiny in like 3 or 4 months.
I know.
For real though,
He's
that is a power play right there, bringing in the one Matthew Timmons to run day-to-day operations at Mythos.
It's very exciting and illuminating, and the best thing I could have ever done for my brain.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, we need to get a new Moonlight for Shoyles and for Shoyles Industries, and we'll take over the world.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So 2 good shills. Let's jump into the interview with Paul. Well, Paul, thanks for joining us, man.
That's sweet. I look like Mickey Mouse with these headphones. Mickey.
Me
No,
too.
we're all wearing them, man.
All
You
good.
look great.
Yeah,
look
but
great.
I look worse than the other three. It's great.
So,
So you-
yeah, welcome to Dipped in Tone, man. Happy to have you on. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak with you today. We've got some topics and some questions lined up for you that I think we're gonna have a good time talking through. So, thanks, man.
Can I cause trouble?
Oh yeah, of course.
Please.
Okay.
We tried to go through all. You just got back from Europe.
Yeah.
You made a ton of stuff, so we tried to distill a lot of that. So we're hopefully not going to be retreading too much ground. And
We'll
hopefully
make
not
it
at
all new. There's plenty to talk about. Our industry shifts every day.
That's
Yeah,
true.
and trouble makes good radio. So we're
That's good.
Yes.
we're ready for it.
All right.
So, speaking of, how was your Europe trip?
Well, I went to Japan the 5 days prior. So I went to Japan, was there for 2 days, came home, got on a plane the next day, went to England, France, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, back to England. And as I'm headed down to do an event there, the sign on the side of the road said Stonehenge, and I'm screamed, pull over. Oh, my God. I got to go to Stonehenge in the mist in the morning by myself. It was awesome.
Nice.
Going to Froome to that pedal show, it's wild because you said that on the show that like you're just driving there and there it is on the side of the road. It's
On
like
the side
it's
of the road,
unbelievable.
but it was covered in mist. And we went to a police officer. He said, we're closed. But if you go park where the hippies park, down this dirt road over here, and you go here, there's a law in England where you can walk between the fields. It's government land, and you can walk in between it. And I was very taken by it. It was not a feeling I expected. It had a different feel than any place I've ever been. It was the oldest feeling I ever had.
Yeah.
Nice. Was it bigger or smaller than you expected it to be?
About the same size. It's pretty big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I think what we're going to start off with here is we're going to dip a rig. So, Zach, do you want to explain to Mr. Smith what we're doing?
All right,
So-
wait a minute. Dip a rig.
Yeah.
We're dipping a
Okay.
rig. So the title of
Okay,
the show
what-
is Dipped in Tone.
I got that. Dipped in glass, dipped in tone. I like that.
Well, should we
So-
explain the origin of the title first, or just move
Yeah.
past it?
So Rhett and I, for those that don't know too, we always found the saying, well, I'll be dipped in shit really funny. And
It's still funny.
You ever
it's
heard
hilarious.
Yeah, of course I've heard it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when all this started, we were invading each other's live streams. I was doing the Mythos Pedals live stream. Red
Yeah.
was doing his live streams, and we thought we should turn this into a show. And like, what should we call it? And the obvious choice for both of us was dipped in
yeah.
tone.
Yeah, okay.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I got it.
But
there you go.
dipping a rig is something we started where the listeners of the show, the patrons, people who support us on Patreon, will send photos of their guitar rig, and we'll dissect it, talk about it, see what we like, what we don't like, what we change, and just have a little conversation and involve the community. So
So
I
you're
can
going to
get-
show me a rig,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to have to talk about what I like and what I don't like about the rig.
Yes.
But I am reticent to do the don't part. But let's go. Let's just
Well,
do
no.
it.
Here's the thing. So these are all willing participants who, they know that by providing their rigs to be dipped, that they're going to get an honest take of what we like and we don't
Let's
like.
go.
At
Let's
the
go.
end,
They want
you're going to give a
honesty, eh?
rating. You're going to get a rating out of 10, and that rating is in the unit of Shoils, which we'll get to in a minute. So let's see the
All
rig.
right. Oh, here we go.
boom. There it is.
Nice. Okay,
So-
cool.
What model boogie is that?
That is the Fillmore 25. So I can pull it up here, so we can.
Is that
I
a
can-
new model?
It's fairly new.
Yeah.
So here, let me break down this rig. So this is from John Carley, and we'll do the guitars first. He's got a US Strat. It's been modified a little bit. He's got a PRS S2 McCarty. It says 594 thin line. An Epiphone 1966 Century reissue. The amp is a Mesa Boogie Fillmore 25 with a stock Celestion Mesa cab. And then his board, he's got a variety of stuff. He's got a really wacky fuzz that is based on a Devi Ever circuit. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Just a madness circuit. He's got a Mythos Golden Fleece. He's got a Polytune, the Timmy V3, the 1981 DRV, an Electric Mistress Flanger, Voodoo Lab Micro Vibe, an arpeggiating delay, a walrus reverb, and then a T-Rex replicator tape echo. So that's his setup. And he says he's just a hobbyist who occasionally jams with friends. And so this is his setup for that.
That's a hell of a rig for someone just occasionally jamming with friends.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so let's start with the guitars. The Epiphone is cool. I don't think we've seen this model yet on the show. And this is similar to what, doesn't James Bay play something like that or something similar to that? I think a vintage one.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So it's a thin, semi-hollow design. Well, I guess
and you said that's a reissue. That's not an original single pickup ES330, right?
No, that's a newer reissue of the old Century model. But then he's got this Strat that he's modded. It's got just a Texas special neck and then a Fat Cat P90 with one volume and tone. So he's pretty much de-stratified it.
That's pretty sick.
Very cool.
That's pretty sick.
What do you mean by de-stratify? It's a Strat.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. I mean,
what do you mean by de-stratify?
Well, it's taken,
I think he's made good decisions, and that your de-stratify comment might not be the good decision. I like it. Look, for somebody who's doing what you said, that's a well thought through, heartfelt, can get a tone out of it rig. Period.
Yeah. Well, and I like that. It seems that the PRS. This is the 594 thin line S2, right? That seems to be the center point of the rig. So that is the one guitar to do everything, and then he's got two different sort of tangential guitars that do two completely different things. I think this is a pretty well-rounded guitar setup here.
I think so too. I mean,
a lot of tones.
I want to give him a hard time, but I can't.
Okay.
I mean, look, this isn't just a jamming rig. You could record with this rig.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you put the cabinet downstairs on a long cable, with a SM7 like we're talking into on it, it'd be sound. You could use this as a recording rig. How many of the pedals I would have left plugged in, or whether I would have just gone through one or two of them and disconnected the other ones, that's different. But I'll bet you there's something close to a vintage 30 in the cabinet, and this thing will do its job. I mean. In my world, we say things like "next." I mean, it's just a good rig. There's not a bad decision here, based on what you've said. Now, if this was Carlos's rig, I would wonder how his original Mark I sounded compared to that. And I want to know whether he was using the Altec speaker that he's been famous for. Did he switch to EV? And did he get the new Carlos Santana pickups in the PRS? Or how long cables are he using? Is he going wireless? All that stuff. But that's not what the goal of this rig is. The goal of this rig is to have a good time. And I give him a 10. He wins.
Okay. All right. So we've got
Mickey. That's Mickey talking.
All right. So so Paul's ringing in at a 10 out of 10 shoals, which is pretty high praise for. You're the first guest we've ever had dip a rig. So to come out of the gate swinging with a 10 is pretty strong. And we'll look at the pedal board for a second. I like this. I think it's pretty well rounded. I love the replicator tape echo. Those are so cool. I want one really bad. You don't see them a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if he's running it in front of the boogie or if it's in the loop or something like that. Does he say in the email?
He doesn't say.
Yeah, you know what the problem? Wait a minute. The problem is there's buffers in all these devices, and every single one of these plugs is 5 to 15 picofarads. And each time you go into one and another and another and another and another, you lose more and more of the tone of the guitar and get more and more of the tone of the pedal. First thing I'd want to do is plug straight into the amp and then figure out what I needed and then only plug through those.
Yeah.
So that's a very complicated art. As somebody said once to me, the pedal board changes the tone is whether you could stand it or not.
Oh, 100%.
Very true.
Now, I don't disagree with you. I think we could pare down this board a little bit. I like the Golden Fleece, a little self-shill there. The Timmy was a go-to overdrive for myself. The 1981 is cool, but I'm wondering if with the gain stages in the amp, I would probably drop one or two of the gain stages on the board and rely on the amp and hitting it with maybe a really good boost or just that fuzz.
Yeah, but okay. But now you're going pro, and his goal is to have fun with his friends. for the goal you set, he still wins.
Okay.
I mean, is he listening to this?
I hope
don't know.
so. Or if he's not currently, he will be for sure.
Well, he wins. Look, go to the next. We dipped this rig. Go to another rig.
Cool.
You dipped it. We saw
No,
the dip.
no, you dipped it. I didn't see this rig ahead of time. You did.
No, well, we
I was the only one that really. I tend to pick the rigs.
Well, I think the center of the rig is the amp.
Oh, 100%.
You said the center of the rig is the PRS, but I think the amp's the center of the rig. Although
well, the center of the guitar setup is the PRS. That's like the one that you start with, and then when you want something a little heavier, you go with the destratified Strat.
That's very sweet. D-Strat, you did it again. Is that a de-Gibsonized Epiphone? I mean, do you understand what the story with Epiphone was? They bought a string bass company, and when the truck arrived from Epi, the guitar jigs were in the truck. They didn't know. They had no idea. Ted was like blown away. Oh my God, we've got jigs to make the guitars. So what he did was make Epiphone a parallel line like Johnson and Evinrude outboard motors. He didn't plan on getting the guitar thing. So when I see this, I think about the history of where this came from, and Ted, the truck pulling up to Kalamazoo, and they had no idea they bought a guitar company. And for me, there's a lot of that history in here. But when you say you de-stratified the Strat, you didn't change the neck shape, you didn't change the pick guard, you didn't change the body shape, you didn't change the weight of it. You changed a couple of pickups, and then it's no longer a Strat. I don't know.
Well, but I wouldn't say it's completely no longer a Strat. But wouldn't you agree that getting rid of the middle position and then changing the bridge pickup out pretty well alters the soul of a Stratocaster? I mean,
wait a minute. The middle pickup's out of Ritchie Blackmore's guitar. It didn't de-stratify that.
Yeah, it's a valid
Hendrix
point.
didn't use a treble pickup. Did that de-stratify it? I mean, he was playing the solos on the bass pickup. When we made the Hendrix amp, I got a chance to play through that rig, and I was like, I couldn't believe that it's made a bass pickup sound like a treble pickup. I was stunned. Okay, it's been de-stratified. We'll just go with your analysis because you're going to stay on that rock and not move.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to die on this one.
All right,
welcome to Rhett.
Okay, so here's
look, you wanted me and all of me. You got it.
Oh yeah, no.
Next rig.
This is great. This is
go
what we're
to
here
the
for.
next rig.
Well, we only got one rig.
We only
got
one.
Yeah,
That's not fair.
What do you
we
mean
got more
that's not fair?
topics. We got all sorts of stuff. It's
Yeah, we
gonna
got
be
tons of
awesome.
stuff to talk about.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna give this 9.6 shoyles. I think you could clean up the pedal board a little bit. I agree with Paul's point that there's a lot happening there. I think we could get rid of some of the gain stages on the board, rely more so on the amp itself, but otherwise I'm happy with it. I approve.
Yeah, I think I'd give it a solid 9 because the Fillmore is like Mace's. It's kind of like their black panel Fender thing, except it's 2 duplicate channels and they have multiple gain stages. So there's a ton of gain in that amp and they sound great. But yeah, I'll give it a solid 9. But
all right, I'm going to change my rating.
Okay.
9, 6, and 9 added together and divided by 2 is 9.3. I get her a 9.3. I'm right in the middle.
Very diplomatic of you.
Very. But the thing you left out was his goal. It makes his goal.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
it does more.
That's a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, I mean, that's a rig you could take to damn near any gig, to any session, depending on what the session is, who the artist you're playing for is.
You could get through the session.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I might not be as happy without my stuff, but I'd get through the session with the guitar and the amp. I would get through it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe that little Marshall, if it's not a reissue behind you, would make me happier, but I don't know.
That's the 59 hand-wired reissue.
That's a reissue. Never mind.
Can't afford a real one, Paul.
Yes, you can, and I can prove it right now.
Okay.
If I hit you in the mouth and knock your teeth out, you'll find the money to sue me and get your teeth fixed. You can get the amp fixed. It's bullshit. All right, I just said the word. Easy. I'm sorry. It's not high enough on your priority to get one.
That's a better way to phrase it.
Well, let's go there.
Okay.
Look, I was blown away once. Somebody taught me not to use money as an excuse. And of all the weird things, I bought a fishing rod a spinning rod from Cabela's, and I pull it out of the thing. It was one of the nicest pieces of gear I'd ever seen in my entire life. And my jaw dropped that I owned, for the first time in my life, a really high-quality fishing rod, because I loved this backwater fishing stuff that I do. And it changed my mind forever. And I've had these discussions with Derek Trucks and piles of other people about not using money as an excuse if it's something important. This place would not exist if I hadn't assigned the original paperwork that I had no idea how I was going to pay back. And they took a glass of wine and pushed it across the table after I signed the document and said, "Drink, Paul." Because I didn't know any way I was going to be able to repay what had just happened. So if you want that hand-wired amp to be an original Plexi, I've got one for sale upstairs. I've got a 66 PA top, a 50, and you would die to own it, and it would be a gem in your life for the rest of your life. But no, I did not get teeth.
I did not think I was going to jump on the podcast today and be pitched a 50-watt Plexi from PRS himself. You know, I don't disagree with that, but I think... Yeah,
Did I just pitch you an amp? I'm so sorry.
Well, we'll talk later about it. We'll kick some numbers around.
Yeah, my recheck gear you get. Okay, good.
No, I mean, I think your point is valid, but for me, I didn't actually pay for this amp, in full disclosure. I worked a deal with Marshall, and I was making a video. So there's that. But to your point of, you know, if you really wanted the thing, yeah, you'll make it happen. And yeah, we all have examples of gear. I have guitars. I've got a 64 AC30 over here that I wasn't expecting to buy. Didn't necessarily have the money to buy at the time. But when that walked into my life and I played it, and I had some friends play it and tell me, "You need that amp," I made some moves and got that amp. So I don't disagree. But
I have a 64 AC50 for sale. You want that?
Okay, hold on. Now this show's getting expensive for me, and
I love it.
No, it's not. You haven't spent a dime. You haven't spent one penny. I haven't tried to pitch you any PRS products yet. Oh, you're a dead man coming. Let's go.
Well,
have you tried the horse meat?
I've not tried any of the pedals yet.
You haven't tried the compressor.
I do have the HDRX 20 though, and it's excellent.
Actually, that's a good sounding amp.
It's a great sounding amp.
Have you?
I have an old HD 50 before the name change back there.
Do you really?
And I do, and it's so good. So I worked at Carter Vintage in Nashville, and I played so many vintage Marshalls and just stuff that, you know, it really would be. It would take a lifetime to earn what I think it would, you know, take to get these amps. Some of them, like original Blues Breakers and stuff, and hands down, that the HDRX 50 just boggles my mind with how good it is. And I'm not just trying to, you know, kiss your ass or anything. I think it's truly fantastic, and you guys knocked it out of the park with that thing.
You know, most Marshalls are broken. You know, old ones are broken, right? They need a tech, just like an old violin. It needs a tech. And it's not so simple. But I thought, you know, people were going to want to sound like Hendrix when we released it. They don't want to sound like Hendrix. They want to sound like themselves.
Sure.
Which I thought, you know, Lettieri was one of the first people started playing with one of those things, because for him, it made his pedal board be so clear. He loved it. So, all right, look, I'm having fun at your guys' expense. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Wait, I want to know, before we move on from the Marshall thing, so my 59 hand-wired, what does this not do that a real Plexi does that causes you to sort of scoff at the reissue?
You have to A-B it.
Okay.
You have to A-B it. If he worked at Carter, he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
They're all so different.
They're all so different. Look, I'll give you one example. They put hi-fi transformers in with the radio spares, and when they switched over to the Drakes and the Dagnalls, they sounded completely different. So you have to A-B it to know the answer to that question. But I've had the honor of being able to do that, and they sound different. These old Marshalls are big, thick, powerful sounding things. They don't sound bright and pokey.
Yeah.
So they don't jump at the note. You know, they have a sweetness to them. Until you A/B it, you wouldn't know. Look, I was at Chicago Music Exchange, and I was talking about the way these old guitars sound, old Strats and old Les Pauls, and how they were my teachers, and this, that, and the other. And this guy stands up in the middle of 300 people and goes, Paul. I said, what? He goes, Paul. I said, what? He goes, we don't know what you're talking about. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, we've never played an old Strat. We've never played an old Les Paul. We don't know what it is.
Right.
I said, they're hanging on the wall behind me. You can play them right here. I'm in a museum. I looked at David Colt, who started Reverb, and I said, David, they can play them right. He goes, no. I went, oh, no. And at that moment, I realized that I had spent my entire career going around to these trade shows and playing all these guitars and learning what they had to offer. The only way I could talk to Ted McCarty after he passed was to play his old guitar, Forrest White, or, you know, to talk to Ken Brown, who I never got to meet. What he thought on that day was in that amp. And so I was talking about the sustain of these things, and they made me get out a stopwatch and check the sustain of the old one, the new one, the guitar I brought. I mean, look, no matter what, a guitar that rings 14 seconds is not as good as a guitar that rings 48 seconds, period. End of story, out of here, gone bye-bye. One of them's deadening the string, and the other one is not. So, you know, I was talking about that, and I realized that I'd spent my whole career doing these shootouts that you're talking about, I'm talking with you about having. Once you've played through an old 65 Plexi with a rectifier tube, you're not going to think the same thing again.
Yeah.
As long as it's in good condition and is a good example, right? Like, that's the other part with vintage gear is I grew up, especially with vintage guitars, thinking that, well, as I started to learn about this stuff, because it was old, it was good, which is not the case. You know, we talk about this on the show all the time.
Yeah.
And we actually just had Joe Bonamassa on a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about bursts, and you know, Zach working at Carter, drink, and
what
me
does
doing,
drink mean? You keep saying that every single time.
It's a drinking
We have a
game that we
drinking game.
run that actually our patrons started because we bring up a few of these things a lot. So, you know.
So every time you say Carter Vintage, you say drink.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
every
'cause
time I think about this interview being over, I want a scotch. Is that the same thing?
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing at all. What kind of scotch do you drink?
Don't ask.
Okay.
I like really good old peaty scotch.
You're a Pete guy.
I Octomore
Oh,
is my favorite.
you're a real Pete guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My wife doesn't like the way it smells, but that's all right.
Neither does mine. It's okay.
That's okay. Judy likes it.
But yeah, so there's this idea
Andrew
that
likes it.
the idea that because you have something that's old, it's automatically good, and that
All right,
that
so
is not the case.
The promise of old gear is if you get an old pedal, if you get an old amp, it's going to make you better. It's mostly a lie.
Yeah.
But once in a while, it's not. And that's the sifting through process that people at Carter Vintage are doing. You know, what Joe has spent his career doing. So to me, the only way I can learn from the masters that started our business is from these old pieces of gear. I can't talk to Forrest White anymore, who was the production manager at Fender anymore. I can't. I got to talk to him a couple days before he passed away, which is fascinating. But I don't know. Look, mostly it's a lie. You're right. But once in a while, oh my God, it's not.
Yeah. So I think that's a good segue into something that we wanted to touch on, because in watching that pedal show, you guys started to talk about the Tonewood debate, and then on the Andertons thing, you compared the Paul's guitar that belongs to Pete with another guitar they had at the shop, and just demonstrated acoustically, you know, what it is good wood can do, and that's something that, you know, people still debate ad nauseum about the fact that wood does or does not matter. And in our opinion, of course it does, but we wanted to talk to you about that and get some input as to
so
all of
I
it.
found an argument in Germany when I was over there that I think sticks. If the instrument doesn't matter and it's only the pickup, then a concert violinist would go up to a Neumann microphone and the violin would not matter at all. It's his hands and the microphone. That's it. That's all that matters, according to the internet. What a load of crap. So, if you grab any guitar behind you, that's any brand, it's going to make a vowel sound. It's going to make a oo or a aw or a ah or a eh or a eh or a e. It's going to make, and you've heard guitars go when you play them, or ones that go da 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 da. A really good guitar is bright on the bass strings and really thick on the high strings. And that the pickup picks up. And the idea that the pickup is going to ignore the fact that that red guitar in the rig is hollow and has a note that's coming out of it all the time, those harmonics are added to every note you play, is nuts. And, you know, I've heard it over and over and over and over again, that the Tonewoods don't make any difference whatsoever. It's just not true.
Right.
Look,
well,
I took a couple of violin makers to my wood supplier once, and they went and knocked on every piece of wood in this entire area. And they were listening not for the note, but how long it rang. Mm-hmm. And at the end, the wood cutter jaw dropped. And I said, "What's wrong?" He goes, look what they picked out. They'd picked out 40 backs for violins. They all had the same number on it. I said, "What does that mean?" He says, "They're all from the same tree, Paul." Mm. I mean, they had picked out the ones that rang the longest and was all coming from the same tree. So now that doesn't matter? It's just nuts.
So I'm curious, did you see the video that went around earlier this year? It was a Nashville guitarist named Jim Lill who made this video, you know, trying to sort of quantify how much the wood affects the sound of a guitar. And the video went somewhat viral throughout the guitar YouTube world. Have you seen this, where he like makes the guitar between two wood benches? And yeah. So what do you think about that video?
I thought he was in the right garden at the beginning of the journey.
Interesting.
I don't think he was not at the end of the journey. He was at the beginning of the journey. Look, take Joe Walsh, take Brent Mason, take David Grissom, take they're all doing shootouts nonstop, usually in their basement with a Blackface Deluxe, you know, constantly, as if it doesn't make a difference. Of course it makes a difference. You're talking about this acoustic tone that the guitar makes, and then the pickup is picking that up, and the pickup has its own parametric equalizer in it. So it's a combination of the acoustic sound of the guitar, how long it rings, what harmonics it's amplifying, how even it is or not, and then the pickup makes a huge difference. In a Strat that has not been de-stratified, you have a note that you can hear in every note you play. That whistle note is in the pickups. It's not in the guitar, that's in the pickups. So you think of it as a Strat sound. But if, you know, the amount of shootouts that Carlos or John Mayer, Mark Tremonti, you name anybody, it's astounding how important how the guitar sounds acoustically and electrically and the pedal board. I mean, the first time I played through a Klon, it was adding high mid-range, it was taking high end away, it was taking out bass, it was doing this, it was doing that. It was basically fixing a Strat.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was cool, except every time I turned the gain up, the bass went away, which I didn't dig. You know, look, by definition, I'm probably one of the worst gear sluts you guys will ever meet. As my wife says when I'm looking at eBay, "Are you slutting?" I like it. I enjoy it. I enjoy this whole process of learning about this industry. Most people got into guitars because they wanted a date. I got into it because I loved the tone. I thought it was awesome. I was dipped in tone.
Hey.
Sorry. No, it's great. Do you think that a lot of this stems from just inexperience? Because that was
no.
No. For players who argue that it doesn't matter, because that's how when it clicked with me that all these things that the wood truly is so monumental as to
makes
how
a difference. It's a part of the puzzle. It's not all of it.
Right.
We blame everything on one thing. It's a combination, a long string combination problem.
Yeah, but
it's oversimplified.
Do you think that people that haven't spent the time, you know, really comparing two of the same instrument to really see that, there's something different here. What can it be? It can't just be that one guitar has dead strings and the other doesn't. There's something else that's causing that. You think, that's what I've always kind of thought this stems from, is this lack of experience, people getting to play as much stuff.
All right, wait, you just made a good point. If the pickup's the only thing that matters, dead strings doesn't matter. I never thought of that till just now.
Right.
Look, what's my job? What is this 450 people's job in my building? There's 12 guitars in the rack, and the Rockstar reaches for ours before any other one. And if they don't, it's our fault. Now, in that equation, are you going to erase the importance of how the guitar rings and how much sustain it has and how even it is before the pickup's in it? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not that they're being dumb, or it's that they're not in a position that their entire income relies on whether or not that guy likes your guitar better than the other one. The first time Carlos Santana picked up one of my guitars and he really liked it, he got mad at me. He goes, "You're going to make me call people and not work with them anymore. You're putting me in a really bad position, and I don't like it." And I apologized. I said, "I'm sorry, but, I did my best." He goes, "No, you did good." And he thought it sounded like a tenor saxophone. I thought it sounded more vocal, but he thought it sounded like a big tenor. And that, for him, was important.
Right. So when it comes to a great guitar.
Oh, here we go. Let's go down this road.
I really want to go down this road.
All right.
So we all agree that wood matters. And it is, but
no, we all don't agree. That's what we were just saying.
Well, the three of us on this podcast.
Okay,
here.
good. The three of us. All right.
Yeah. And to me, the wood debate ended when I realized that every guitar player that I look up to and respect and study and want to emulate, that I know, Tim Pierce is a mutual friend of ours. Tim is a huge influence for me.
He can't play.
Hey, you said it, man. I didn't say that.
I was sarcastic as hell.
I'm going to get a call after this.
I feel like
I'm
in the dunce chair. Look, of course Tim can play. He's brilliant.
Oh, of course he is.
He's frighteningly good. If he's your friend, I'm teasing him.
Oh, I know. I'm teasing back. My point is that every guitar player that I respect and look up to all understands that a great guitar is the sum of all of its parts. And
That's right.
A major part of the guitar is the wood that it is constructed from. So with that in mind, with your experience, you've built a few guitars over the years, I imagine, when you're looking for a good piece of wood or a good, let me back up. With a specific guitar, is what matters more? Is weight a big factor for you, or is it how resonant the piece of wood is, the species of wood? What's the biggest factor?
How long it rings, how much it weighs, how long it rings, how much it weighs, and then how's it look, and then can you make a combination where the guitar is not a brick, but it's also not made of balsa wood, and you want it to be a musical instrument in the end. Look, the nut material and the bridge material is more important than the wood material. If you make the nut out of rubber and you make the bridge out of rubber, I don't care what wood you use. You got a piece of junk on your hands, okay? So it's one of the pieces of the puzzle, and to lay it all on one thing, it's just not the way it works. Okay, look, the only thing that's important in Led Zeppelin was John Paul Jones's keyboard parts. Nothing else mattered.
Really?
No, it's a lie. It was this beautiful matrix. And if you listen to them play, Kashmir, when Jason Bonham was playing drums at that big concert, it's stunning, the matrix that they had put together. And you can't just blame it on one thing. It's the whole thing put together as a beautiful piece of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, art, chemical engineering, talent, art. It just goes on and on and on the list. And, I should have been trained in all these areas, but I got trial by fire. I had to make these people happy, not knowing enough to be able to do it. And slowly over the time, we've been able to retrace our steps to understand what it was in Carlos's original guitars and what it was in, these original things that were magic. Look, that horse meat pedal, the first one sounded great. The next ones didn't. And we spent a year reverse engineering our own pedal.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not so simple, and I don't, there are guitar companies that don't glue the nut on and make the nut out of the same material you hook your toilet to your septic tank with. Does it sound like a good idea to you? It just doesn't sound like a good idea to me. It looks like bone.
I remember you had some videos years ago where you dropped nuts on a table just to hear them ring. Like
That
you
was
would.
it. That was TED Talk. I never made it to nationals. They didn't like that.
Well, it was great because it really it was very illuminating for me because it reminded me of my dad saying, how to tell which quarter is silver by just dropping it on a table and you could hear it ring, and it's just, it's incredible. Well, like we have a few more things we wanted to touch on, but all of that, what you just talked about, kind of brings us to a question we had thought of, which is it harder to improve? Because you guys, you have your core line and everything, which is, like fantastic instruments. And then your SE line, which has become pretty much the industry standard for anything that is not made in the States as an import line. It's like
That's
as
sweet
good
of
as
you
it
to
gets.
say thank you.
Well, I mean,
Jack's
it's true.
gonna love hearing that.
But what's harder to improve? Is it harder to take the core stuff to the next level, or to improve those SE guitars to get them, to blur the line even further?
Both. So let me explain. I brought Jack up because Jack's in charge of that whole thing with SEs. He's on the phone at 3 a.m. every day talking to the factory and teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
I have a meeting almost every day at 9 o'clock that we call one a day. We try to fix one quality thing a day. That would be 250 improvements a year. And at the end of the meeting, if we haven't done one, it's in my mind, a failed meeting. And if we've done 3, it was a great meeting. So it's just as hard on both sides. Mm-hmm. And, I let the private stock team free float. I let them do their own art. I don't try to lock them. Well, you're going to do exactly this and exactly. They're designing their own inlays. They're driving the color palette as, art students that have become guitar makers. In our industry, there's some things that I just let people. I didn't set this meeting up. I didn't set this whole thing up that we're doing today. It was all entrusted in a group of people that know what they're doing, in the marketing department. I don't do that. But I am driving really, really hard every day to get improvements in the guitars, and Jack's driving every day with the SEs. And this place is not trying to be a Bluetooth company. We're trying to be a guitar company, and we're trying to make sure that black guitar, which I haven't touched, is doing the job for your gear slut.
Do you? What are some of the improvements? Because that, like, hearing that as a brand owner myself and working to improve the pedals that I make, I've never thought of trying to fix one small improvement a day. So what kind of things are you guys?
Name one part of the guitar, and I'll tell you what we're working on in that area.
Saddles.
Oh boy.
Did I touch a sore subject? What's
you
going
touched a monster. So let's do this.
All right, let's go.
The saddle on a Telecaster, on an old one, is a 1/4-inch diameter piece of brass. The saddle on a Strat is like a 3/16 piece of steel circle. The saddle on a Tune-o-matic is a piece of brass with a sharp edge at the end. All these things make a difference. And we have been engineering change noticing, which we called an ECN, every single place on our guitars where the string leaves the bridge in order to start singing. On our tremolos, that is a constantly changing radius. As you push the arm down, it's changing the radius, and as you pull it back, it's changing the radius. But we don't want it to buzz at any point, and we want the string to have a clean start of its note. The way you make a sitar is to have the radius be so long that it buzzes on itself. So you don't want it to sitar, which the old tellies did if you didn't take a file to it. Mm-hmm. And all that stuff makes a difference. So how it leaves the bridge is a monster. You know, getting the we've been working really hard on getting bow nuts to stay attuned with tremolos, and that's, you know, that's a thing. There's it over and over and over again. There's stuff. I played one of the best treble pickups I've ever heard in my life the other day in my studio, and I'm just literally can't contain myself that it's going to hit the line at some point. Our private stock team is about 6 months behind production. We are within 6 months of when we find that we can do it to getting it on the line. And it's complicated, it's hard, but it's working. And when I pull a guitar off a store wall, I want it to be studio ready and gig ready right off the wall, not touched. David Grissom holds my hands to the fire. He will not go to a clinic with a guitar. He only will take one off the wall and make sure he does his clinic with that guitar, and is willing to risk everything about his experience at the thing if that guitar is not doing its job. And so far, so good. He's been happy every time. So I've seen Carlos Santana take guitars out of here, put them in the back of the limo, go to the gig, pull it out, they tune it up, and he's playing for 18,000 people on a guitar that's not had a sound come out of it more than a minute in its life. You don't think I was nervous?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we had done our job. The frets were level, the nut wasn't sticking, the tremolo was working, the pickup sounded good. I mean, you're talking about hard to understand mechanical engineering physics issues, and we are getting better at it. Guitar
it's
makers,
interesting. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. Guitar makers don't get good till they're my age, but that's a different story. We're not like athletes that peak at 27. That's not the way it works.
Well, musicians, I feel like, are the same way. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was like, I can't wait to be. I look forward to the day when I'm in my 60s and I've been playing guitar for 50 years, because there are certain things I feel that you can only learn as a musician that you can only pick up through time and experience. And it sounds like what you're saying about the guitar building industry is somewhat the same way. Yeah,
and this group of people's hungry to learn. There were some dry periods, like we didn't see any UFOs, you know? There was no UFOs. Then now we're seeing them every day.
Okay, cool.
No, seriously, we're learning at an alarming rate right now. I don't know what is in the water right this second. But the speed, I was talking to James Zimmers about it the other day, who works at PTC. I said the speed at which we're being taught is extraordinary. It's not dry right now. It's wet. It's raining. And it's really nice. I got my hands on a Lloyd Loar mandola from 1922 recently. And when I picked it up and plucked it, my exact comment was, our industry has forgotten how good a mandolin can sound tuned to fifth down. This thing was explosive how loud it was. But they didn't have an amplifier. They didn't have a pickup. They had a box that was a physics conversion device for how hard you hit it, how loud the sound it made. And I adore that stuff. Look, you guys wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you didn't adore it.
Oh, of course.
I'm sorry. We're all in the same bucket here, I think.
Uh-oh. Oh. Hold on one second. Someone's tripped my alarm.
Uh-oh. All right, we'll put a pause in.
Nah, gear slow alarm. He's burning up.
Zach just moved into a new building this week, so I imagine that this is hopefully just a hiccup.
Hey.
I pulled
Everything's fine.
I pulled the gear sled alarm when you got up and started making a noise like an alarm.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so according to Reverb, the Silver Sky SE is the best-selling guitar of the year. Are you guys surprised at all about how well embraced that model has become? Not just the SE, but the Silver Sky in general. I mean, I see them everywhere now.
Complicated question, yes and no. yes, I'm surprised because it's an honor what's happened. When we first released the Silver Sky, somebody called me and told me I'd farted in a spacesuit.
What the hell does that mean?
It means I'd made a stink that wasn't going to go away for a long time. And now that person owns one and adores it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we did this. I did a clinic once. And this guy was slagging me so bad in the back. I can't believe I came to this clinic. This guy's an idiot. This is awful. In the back. And I couldn't hear him. I was just doing my clinic. And I was talking about the Silver Sky, and I said, it sounds like a 63 Strat. And the room didn't believe it, so I grabbed it off the wall and plugged it in and turned the bass pickup on, and the guy bought the guitar. So let's talk about that for a minute. I had gotten the acoustic tone of the guitar right. I'd gotten the sound of the pickups right, and he knew what a 63 Strat sounded like because they have a different kind of sound than other years. So did you de-stratify it by making it 4 years after 59?
Well, no, because it's still a 3 single coil pickup.
Okay. So by definition, no. But am I surprised at how well it's done? Yeah, real surprised, but a little bit not, because when I first picked up the neck and I wrapped my hand around it, I welled up because I knew that neck shape had not been tooled up right in 50 years. And here I was holding essentially a 63 neck shape, right? 63 and a half, something like that. So, but when the Silver Sky SE came out, when John first heard it, he goes, that's the best overseas pickup I think I've ever heard. It's approved now. And that was months before we did it. And then he got his friends together to play the guitar sight unseen at a video shoot, and that went really well. And what I knew was that for the money, that was about as good a tone as you were going to get for the money that the industry had seen. So on that side, I'm not surprised. But it's an honor to be in this position at this company, and the amount of people that are driving for the same things is an honor to be around. And yeah, I had dinner with John and Bev recently. Bev runs our artist relations, and he was so proud of that reverb thing. He said it felt like a Grammy to him.
That's a big deal, man. I mean, especially in a time when, since the pandemic, guitar sales have exploded. I mean, we're seeing a real renaissance in the guitar industry right now. Both from, the builder's perspective, like what Zach does, and from even the content and social media and YouTube perspective, like from what I do. I mean, there's more people picking up guitars over the last 2 years than it seems that there has been in history. And I think that's really exciting because, especially with young people, the next generation of guitar heroes and artists that are going to, wield the instrument are playing. They're playing for a year now, 2 years now. And so I think over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, we're going to see a big renaissance of guitar in popular culture. And I don't think it's going to look like what it did in the 50s and 60s. It's not going to sound like what it did in the 70s and 80s and 90s. It's going to be something completely different. Some people aren't going to like it, but it's just the progression of the instrument. So I think it is a huge compliment for both you and for John that at the for this year, you guys are sort of at the forefront of that. Yeah,
and my team was willing to pay for all the tooling to do that guitar right on both sides, the US one and the Silver Sky one on the SE side. So, look.
And that's something that, when the Silver Sky initially came out, I remember people moaning about the time it took to develop that. But what I think a lot of people don't understand is how long it takes to make something as different as an output jack cup. Like that doesn't happen overnight.
I didn't want to do that. John insisted.
But I mean,
that one I didn't want to do. Come on, John. No. I said, let's put the jack on the side. No. I said, come on. He goes, no. His name was on it, so the answer was, yeah, we'd do it.
But even the knobs are all different for that guitar, right? There's nothing. You don't use those on any other of your guitars, right?
No, we retooled everything. There's not one thing on that guitar that's not retooled except for the number 4 sheet metal screws that we used to hold a pickguard on. Everything else was retooled. Everything. Yeah. The case, everything. There's nothing that we didn't retool. We changed the way we make necks. We changed the way we did everything. And, somehow it worked on a guitar making level. It's not a parts guitar.
Right. No, definitely not.
So you said that the 63 Strat is different than 50s, 57, 58, for example. What exactly, in your experience, is different with the 63?
Have you played both of them?
I have not played a 63. I've played a 61 and several late 50s.
The 63 guitars are louder because the magnets have lost less strength.
Okay.
So a 59, the bass pickup wasn't that loud if it hadn't been rewound and remagnetized, correct?
Sure.
Right.
Okay, but by the time 63 and 64 happened, those magnets were rocking and rolling. So the signal-noise ratio was better. It was more signal and less, and when you have more signal, you have less noise. So all that stuff makes a difference. Reverse engineering what happened with the magnets and reverse engineering what happened with the wire and then making modifications so it was more consistent was one of the more difficult things I've ever done in my career. I can tell you, we took two $10,000 pickups that cost us $5,000 each and unwound them, never to be heard again. Send everything off, and everything we found was different than the internet says.
Weird.
So if you're willing to spend the money, I've taken more razor blades to old pickups that I shouldn't have done. Because in my world, if John wasn't happy, nothing mattered.
Yeah.
If he wasn't going to play that guitar in concert and in the studio, he was going to tell everybody.
Right.
Was there anything that really
surprised? You don't control a John Mayer or Carlos Santana or Mark Trevani. That's not the way it works.
Right.
They're going to grab the thing that does the job.
Was there anything about those the pickups that win the Silver Sky that really shocked you or surprised you at how they turned out in comparison with anything else on the market that's supposed to have that?
What
sort of
shocked
voice?
me was when we finally figured out why they sent the old ones sounded like they did. You wound them with exactly the same wire, with exactly the same magnets, with exactly the same back and forth, with exactly the same waxing, and they were 8 dB different than the original ones. Why? It didn't make any sense. I mean, we were measuring them, and it was clearly different. And when we finally got to the bottom of it, it was jaw-dropping. As Hedge said, who runs our engineering department for production, he goes, "You're not going to believe this one, Paul." Wow. So, I mean, how many people have taken shots at those pickups? How many people have taken shots at PAFs, at P90s? It's been shot after shot after shot after shot. And the definition of being insane is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's not the way it works. We had to learn something electrical engineering-wise that was not modelable in a computer.
Right.
So it does make a difference. It makes a huge difference. And right now we're up to our eyeballs in all this stuff. I saw a video that Judy's team's working on today having to do with certain things we've been talking about, and I think we're going to explain some of it to the world, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I can't wait for that. As a gear nerd, that sounds really intriguing. I mean, you've teased it enough with these pickups, man. I got to figure out what I got to know what the
a pickup is a whistle. It is whistling a note. And that note is heard in every note you play, period. It's a parametric equalizer. And it's set a certain way. And the TCI thing that Judy and her team have been pushing talks very much about the whole, capacitive, inductive thing that we've gotten our hands around. Rupert Neve was a inductor winder. He knew how to make a device in a console that whistled at the note he needed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But don't think for 1 second a late 52, early 53 Tele treble pickup sounds the same as one made in 68. It doesn't.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, and the Rupert Neve thing is interesting. I'm building a recording studio in the house right now. And as I've been learning over the years about recording and music production and things outside of just guitar and guitar playing, it's amazing how so many of these things cross over, you know, to just audio in general. You know, I tend to believe that anytime it's best to get as many transformers in your signal path as possible, because
and I'm trying to take them all out now.
Oh, really?
But you have a Pultec or a Pultec copy next to you.
Yeah.
That is basically a guitar pickup.
Yeah.
You have these notes that you can turn click, click, click to, and you can turn up how much and how loud the whistle is in that area.
Right.
But
100%.
in the beginning, you need as many transformers as possible to smooth the sound out. But when you get the electronics right, you need as few as you can have. But it shifts.
So on that, I'd like your input on an internal debate that we've been having here at Shoyles Industries at Dipped in Tone here. And there's no right or wrong answer, just your opinion. So, inexpensive guitar with an expensive high-end amp, or the other way around. Really expensive high-end guitar through a super cheap budget amplifier. What are you going with and why?
It's a completely out of bounds, unfair question, which I refuse to answer.
No, man, you can't do this. Come on.
No. We're going to go down both of these roads. I saw Jimmy Page play In My Time of Dying on an original Dan Electro made out of fiberboard.
Yeah.
Through a old 100-watt amp. Okay, that would be an example of a God tone with a cheap guitar and an expensive amp, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Now he's playing in the bathroom doing a solo in Stairway to Heaven, playing a 53 Telly, expensive guitar through a Supro, piece of junk, cheap amp. Which is better? I mean, come on. You know, Jack White's playing through an old Silvertone you couldn't give away. Now they're expensive because Jack's playing through them. It depends on the guitar. It depends on the amp. It doesn't have to be an expensive guitar to be magic, and it doesn't have to be expensive amp to be magic. It needs to be musical. And when you put me in a box like that and force me to answer a question that's completely out of bounds and not fair, I'm going to push back and go, I'm going to be a dolphin. It's not going to happen. No.
Hey, it's just a thought experiment, okay?
Okay, well, you asked me, so I told you.
That's a valid answer, and I don't disagree. I mean, there is no direct correlation between cost of instrument, amplifier, whatever, and its musicality or its ability to make music. I think we're all in agreement there. But for the thought experiment and to settle this debate between Zach and I, to you, if you had to choose, you're in the box, you might as well choose expensive guitar, cheap amp, or other way around.
Medium cost guitar, medium cost amp.
I think that's as best as we're going to get.
I think that's the best we're going to get. Yeah.
I would prefer...
What's your definition of a cheap guitar? What's your definition of a cheap amp?
We were trying to quantify this the other day, so I think it's a fair point. We need to put some rules on it, put some guardrails up.
So put a guardrail up. It's a guitar price now.
Zach, what do you think?
Inexpensive guitar would be what, like sub $300?
Yep.
And then same for amp, an amp sub $300. And then expensive guitar would be like, what do you think, $2,600 and up? Something like that?
Yeah, three and up.
3 and up.
Yeah, something like that. Same thing with an amplifier.
$3,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like expensive.
Thought experiment, Paul.
Because Rhett is of the camp that will choose an expensive amp and an inexpensive guitar, it being that the guitars are set up properly and all that.
Sure.
And then I would choose a nicer guitar and an inexpensive amp because I'm more comfortable on a guitar.
Good
and Rhett says he can.
$180. Does that count in the price of the guitar?
Yeah. We're just saying like it's all the guitars are set up as they should be. They play well
to your specifications.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought behind this is like you're showing up to a gig, you have this rig, and you have to make it work. Which would you rather see?
Okay. an old melody maker with some pickups out of a bum box at the vintage show, played through an old Plexi.
So expensive amp.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, melody makers aren't cheap now.
Well, that's true. But
Well, no,
I think we all heard.
Depending on what year and whether it's been refretted and whether it's been refinished and what tuning pegs are on it, whether it has the original bridge on it, has the original.
Let's not go too far into this. No. We
just
gave
went
the right
down
answer.
that road.
Let's move on. Moving on.
We didn't
Paul
get
Reed
the
Smith
right
agrees
answer.
with
We
me.
got a. No, we don't. I don't agree with you about anything today.
Finally, that's how I feel most of the time.
Then it's been a good episode of Dipped in Tone. If we can end in an argument, then that's how we know we've done a good job.
Well, I think
That was
Jason,
painful.
Oh, come on. It's just a thought experiment. You don't actually have to choose.
You
with
made
this
me
next one-
choose. I tried middle of the road and I got nowhere.
Yeah. Well, you chose right, so you can rest assured that you made the right choice.
No. I'm going to move with him. He's expensive guitar, cheap amp, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're wrong.
Okay. Well, the internet heard it first. So
Come on. I have enough knowledge to go to a vintage show and find a really cheap guitar and a really cheap amp and be able to get a good sound.
Oh, of
so
course.
how about neither of your choices?
It's fine. It's
I'm
fine.
I'm poorer than dirt, and I can still get a good sound.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Well, I think
So let
we
me
can.
tell you a story.
Yes.
One time, Eric Clapton had to sit in with a band, and they didn't have an amp for him, and they didn't have a speaker cabinet, but they had a guitar. So the roadie had a 15-inch speaker in a board and a basement amplifier, and they took the board and they took it out and they turned it around from the tune-up rig, and they put the basement in it, and he was horrified that Eric was going to play through this non-amplifier live to 10,000 people. You know what it sounded like?
Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton the second he
Yeah.
started playing. So, come on.
Yep.
These guys have an ability to take the power in their hands and literally push it through anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not fair how good these people are.
But that's my perspective
Very
on the higher end amplifier, is that a truly great amp, and the reality is it doesn't matter how much the amp costs, but a truly great amp is, in my mind, an amp that takes everything that you put into it, every little nuance, every little detail, and it reproduces it, and it makes it musical, and it becomes part of the guitar and the amplifier together become this sort of symbiotic organism that work together on stages. And to me, that's why I choose the amplifier, because a less well-made, less quality amplifier doesn't, in my experience, do that nearly as well.
All right, so now we're going to play my game.
All right.
Is a
Yay.
Hendrix 20 an expensive amp or a cheap amp? And how good is it in relation to your little messed up grid?
My messed up grid? You mean the price grid? What do you mean messed up grid? What does messed up grid mean?
$300? Are you out of your mind?
Okay. All right. So
A
then
pedal costs $300.
some pedals cost $300.
Lots of pedals cost $300.
Yes, I do think the HDRX 20 is a great amp. And
Okay, what price point's it in?
that's in the sub 1,000, right, for the head? It's what, $600-700 for the head?
$800.
Yeah. And then the cab is
Is that
what?
the cheap amp?
That
No,
sounds
that's
like
not
God.
cheap amp. It's above 300. So
Is it an expensive amp?
no, it's right in the middle.
No.
Well, but I wasn't allowed to go in the middle. You
Right.
kept me out of that.
I know. That's part of the
Okay,
fun.
so let's do an SE Silver Sky. Cheap guitar, expensive guitar.
what
it's
is
right
the
in the middle still. There's
Nah,
what is-
it's not. It's below the middle.
what is the price on SE Silver Sky?
What?
Sub $1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, right in that mid.
Oh, we can include those.
No, we can't.
No. The fight is cheap with expensive, and
He turned red. I got him. He
Oh,
turned
my
red.
God.
Look, Andrew, look, he's red as an apple. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah,
Look
I
at-
sure am. It's the
He's red.
saturation
I
on my
got
camera,
him.
Paul. No, it's
Nah,
my camera.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I've
you're
got.
gonna
I'm running a
fix
LUT
it.
right now,
Look,
and
you
the
ran
LUT's
purple
very
behind
saturated.
me.
My white balance is off. Don't.
All right, so can I
Well-
say something else?
Yeah.
please.
I find this entertaining.
Good.
I find that you are reflecting the argument of the internet. And I honor that you're doing it because you got a lot of courage to go there. And I appreciate it. And I'm giving you a really hard time because I'm trying to make it fun. I've had so many bad things happen in my life that I'm playful all the time. And my mother used to say, Paul, you and your aggressive humor. Look, I'm trying to have a good time. And you're somewhat at your expense, but that's all right.
No, it's okay. Because here's the deal. Like,
Fine.
we have the utmost respect for you and your company and what you have done in this industry. I mean, it is no small feat, to start off as an independent builder at a time when that really wasn't such a thing, definitely not as big as it is now. And so, yeah, it is. We are reflecting the internet because we're a podcast on the internet, and we largely make our livings on the internet at this point. And it's interesting to be able to have these conversations with someone with your experience and your knowledge. And so, yeah, it's all in good fun.
So being on your show is the new being on the cover of a magazine.
Ooh, that's high praise. I don't know if maybe.
But think about it.
Maybe.
All right, look, you figure out how many views there are, and you figure out how many covers there would have been. Mm-hmm. Numbers about the same. Mm. This is the new media of our industry. This is the new. I could go on the road for 3 years and not reach 100,000 people. Mm-hmm. And what's going on is stunning. And so every time I get a chance to do this, I just jump at the chance to do it. I just think that what's going on is magic. And things are changing really fast. And I found that if I don't have restrictors on other than cursing and being derogatory towards other people, and every other restrictor is off, it's more fun.
Way more fun.
Okay, and give you a hard time, especially you. I don't know why, but you seem more of a good target than him.
I've had it my whole life, man. And the gear page would agree with you and lots of other people on the internet. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So how many people are going to watch this?
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
it's hard to say.
The episode with Joe hit. It got way
50,000, something like that.
Yeah,
40-something thousand. Yeah,
I mean,
it did pretty well. So I'm excited. I think we'll probably have to wrap it up, but seeing as we had one huge argument, let's end it with one good viewer question. And this is from one of our patrons, Mr. David E. And he asked, I'm paraphrasing, but if he's never played a PRS before, which one should he start with? Which one should he try first? Question.
His friends?
Ooh.
Well, if he's going to walk into a store, let's say he's like driving to Chicago.
The one that calls his name that interests him in some way, or the one he thinks he couldn't stand. Either one's fine. Just get started. We sent it there, and we put all our ideas and care into it, and just try one. Buy guitars the way women, or now I can't even say that anymore. Men or whatever, buy shoes. Bring me 12 pairs and try them all on, and whichever one fits, try. If none of them fits, leave the store. I don't really care. All I want is a fair shake that you tried it. His question is extraordinarily important. Just try it. If we suck, fine. If you liked it, fine. If it's better than what you have, fine. If it's worse than what you have, fine. If it doesn't call your name, fine. But at least give us a fair shake.
Yeah.
That's all we want. I just, give us a fair shake.
Awesome.
Look, this is a very, very difficult time for somebody to sift through what's going on. There used to be 4 guitar brands, or 5 guitar brands. Now there's 400 or 500. Mm-hmm. It used to be 4 or 5 pedals that you'd want to buy. It was a wah-wah pedal and a fuzz face and this and that. And now there's 400 or 500 wah-wahs and 405, things. It's hard to sift through. So you're doing a real service to the industry, trying to sift through what's going on. It's complicated. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, a lot of customers know better what's going on than people in the stores. And sometimes the people in the stores are dead set experts, and they'll tell the customer exactly what they thought, and the guy says, yeah, that's nice. I'll study it on the internet tonight. And then the expert rolls their eyes. But sometimes you go to the store because they absolutely know what they're doing, and you need to pay attention to what they're saying because they know better what's going on than you do.
Right.
The reason people are watching your podcast is you're getting information out there that's not available to them otherwise. So I don't know. I'm going to just get on my soapbox and start screaming about how the industry's changed, and I think it's changed in a good way, not a bad way. And but it's definitely different than it used to be.
That's incredibly encouraging to hear, Paul.
Well, you're less red than you were a few minutes ago.
I fixed the white balance. It's all good. Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time, man. It was great.
I've got Judy and Andrew here looking after things, and so it's not just me over here too. There's a lot of people trying to do the right thing over here as well with you guys. I'm sure you've got a team of people going on. So
yeah,
we do.
So get the alarm fixed, will you?
Hey, I don't know what you hire people, they push buttons. I don't know.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
I see you.
Thank you, Paul.
Bye.
Okay, so that was a ton of fun.
Yes. You never know what you're gonna get. What level, where Paul's gonna be, and I thought that was exactly where I wanted him to be.
That was fun. He's been on a bit of a press tour recently.
Yes.
So if you want more Paul Reed Smith, just have at it, because there's a plethora of Paul Reed Smith content to consume. But I was really happy with the PRS that we got today, because I felt like it was right in the pocket. We covered some really interesting topics, and most importantly, I'm right. The amp is the most important part. So that's it. It's settled. We don't.
He
ever
didn't
have
even
to
want
ask
to
the
play
question
the game.
again.
So I think he just,
when we forced him, he picked me, which obviously is the right choice. So it's settled.
I should have grabbed my guitar back here and been like, "What about this?" And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I picked the guitar."
Yeah, good choice. Great choice.
But yeah, it was so great. I mean, all the things he touched on, especially about some of the business things they were just quick and in passing. But for me, it's like, oh my gosh, that's such a smart idea. Like the 1 a day improvement. Like what? I've never thought about that.
You don't become part of the big 3 guitar manufacturers without having a few clever tricks up your sleeve. And he's been doing it for so long too that it's the
and
thing
he's
I
still
liked
doing it.
Yes, and they're still doing it at the highest level they've ever done it. And but the thing that I liked that kind of got glossed over was at the end, the patron question, where it's like, what should he play? And he said his friends. I was like, that's a vote of confidence right there, where he's like, go play your buddy's guitar, the one that he got. Doesn't matter what it is, the most entry level SE whatever, or the most expensive wood library whatever. Go play your friend's guitar. I thought that was cool. So
I mean, and then he circled back to say that he hopes that any one of his guitars would stand on its own no matter what someone chooses to try first. And I think that's awesome. But the whole thing was really great, and had a lot of fun. It was good to see him give you a bit of a ribbing.
Dude, it's inevitable. Must just be something on my face or whatever.
Yeah, we love you.
Yeah. Sure. So thanks again to Paul and the team over at PRS for setting up the interview today. It was a ton of fun, and thanks to him for taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk to us. I mean, trust me, it's not lost on me the weight of if you would have asked me 4 years ago that if I thought that I would have a podcast where we would have the likes of Joe Bonamassa and Paul Reed Smith, or even 2 years ago when we were just shooting the shit on each other's live streams, it would have come to this, I would have never guessed it. So that's a huge thanks to you guys for watching and listening and subscribing. Huge thanks to our patrons and our friends over at Premier Guitar for helping us out and lining up these interviews for us and everything. So and with that, we'd also like to thank the sponsor of today's episode one more time, StewMac. Listen, if you have anything that you need for guitar repair, guitar maintenance, guitar building, guitar setup, guitar painting, pickups, StewMac is your source for all that stuff. And if you follow the link in the description, you can get 10% off of your order. So,
go do that. And then leave us a comment and say what you got, because my favorite thing in the whole world is messing with my guitars. So I want everyone else to enjoy that experience. So
I want someone to buy a Go Bar deck and then tag us.
Yeah, that's one of that's one of those tools that someone, that was just something that someone made once, like themselves out of wood, and then everyone else started making copies of that thing, and now it's like a full-fledged product. It's really interesting to see those things turn into like a tool when it literally started as probably like a box with just bits of wood, holding stuff down. That's awesome.
I bet You know who knows the history of the Go Bar deck?
Adam Savage.
Adam Savage. All right, with that, everyone, thanks. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.